excited. Okay, this is what we're gonna do first, Afa. I don't know if you see this, but I have notes. This is a professional program you're on. This is no
My man.
really big operation. I have the name Afa here and Sika here. Can we please just go over a quick, brief family tree? Who's whose kid? Who's whose brother? I'm gonna write it down because I don't think anyone really knows this stuff.
Yeah. All right. So if all you want is Afa and Sika's kid, here we go. Afa has me, Afa Jr. Obviously, I'm the youngest. Then you got Lloyd, who's in the middle, and then you have Samu, who's the oldest. Right?
Okay, got it.
Now, if you go over to Sika, he has Rosie, rest in peace, and he has Roman Reigns.
Got it.
Yeah,
so does your dad have other brothers and sisters that have children that are in the wrestling business? Is that where everyone else?
Yeah,
my
dad's sister is Rikishi's mom. So,
okay, got it.
And then down come all the Fatus.
Got it.
So
the Usos are Rikishi's kids.
Yep. There's
got it.
The Usos and Solo.
Got it.
Yep.
All right.
Jacob is Tonga Kid's son.
And Tonga Kid is who's
brother.
Where's my piece of paper I just threw away? I might need to write it down. Wow. So who else is actually in your family?
Oh, Yokozuna. Man, there's a lot of us, dude. There's a lot of us. Yeah, Umaga. All the Anawais, all the Fatus. Period.
So when you were a kid, like what I'm trying to figure out time-wise, because I've known you forever. Like, what was your dad doing? Your earliest memories of wrestling? Was he in the ring? Was he managing the head shrinkers?
Yeah, my earliest memories of my dad, besides training, of course, because we've always had training, and we've had rings in our backyard training the guys, back when I was a baby. Some of my first steps was in a ring, actually. And so I've always been around it that side, but like seeing my dad perform and stuff like that. So I was born in '84. I'm 37. So a lot of my dad's run was like, it was like right before the head shrinker run. You know what I mean? Like, because you don't really remember when you're a baby. You know what I mean? I didn't remember the '80s per se. So I remember Pops as the head shrinker. So that was awesome. Because that's me, 10 years old, 9, 10, 11 years old, running around with all the WWE superstars, and at the time it was just like now with the bloodline, you know what I mean? It was Yoko had the strap and the head shrinkers were the tag team champions, and and Pops was the manager and captain and Mr. Fuji, and man, they had the crew. It was a good time back then.
I worked the TV that Sam and Junior won the tag belts.
No,
and actually,
man,
I worked. I think it was Monday. I worked them like 2 days later as well. I worked them so many times, but
yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, I was there when they won
the
belts.
Do you remember the arena? What's the arena?
Fernwood.
My man, Fernwood burned down. You know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, the event center burned down a couple years ago.
I can remember stuff from 50 years ago. I can't remember. My boss is like, "Why don't you have a good memory?" I'm like, "Ask me something wrestling, buddy."
Exactly. I'm the same way. I'll be driving down the road. I'll be like, "I wrestled there, wrestled there." You know what I mean? It's fun.
Did you used to go to the matches as a kid?
Yeah. Well, every time they were in the area, you know what I mean? So I was at SummerSlam back in the day when Luger and Yoko went at it, and Luger beat Yoko by count out, and I was at that SummerSlam. I was at I used to go all the shows, whenever they would come to Hershey, Nassau Coliseum, Madison Square Garden, I was at WrestleMania 10, I was at a lot of shows. I was privileged to be around it very early in life.
What are some of your memories of being in the back or going to the shows? Any good interactions with anybody? Anyone mess with you because you're Alpha's kid? Any good interactions?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been like, back then it was a couple of us second generation kids running around, third generation guys, and but it was really awesome because it was just like my whole family was there. You know what I mean? My dad, my cousins, my brother is there. You know what I mean? Like, and the Usos, and Roman, and it was just a great time. It was a great time to be on the road at those times, and it was just because like at that time my dad was living in Florida, and I was living back in Pennsylvania, so it was like every summer we'd get together, and I would just live there for the whole summer. Wouldn't leave. I'd go on the road with him, and it was awesome, growing up. I remember all the sleepovers and stuff like that at Rikishi's house when he was on the road. Then after the shrinker era, and it was just like it was always part of our lives.
That's awesome. So how did you start training? You just jump in the ring with your cousins and
Oh,
brothers, or did you have actual training regimen? Like, what'd you do?
yeah, well, my dad taught me how to bump really early. I really couldn't even tell you how early, because I mean it was early, early. Oh, excuse me, didn't mean to do that. And yeah, it was really early. Like, I mean, man, had to be single digits when I learned how to bump. And I remember, like, pops would always let me get in the ring as a kid, do the rolls, and do the warm ups and stuff with the guys, and do the squats and do everything like that. And but I never really had official training until I debuted, which was in 1998 in Austria. So yeah, Austria and Vienna. So
Tell me this. They didn't have a show in Pennsylvania. I mean, well, talk to
well,
me. How'd
at
you get
that time I wasn't even interested in being a wrestler. So Pops had a tour. So Pops was organized. He was running a tour at the time with this other lady promoter, and we had to go over there for like 3 or 4 weeks, like the one summer. And I always spend the summer with my pops, like I was saying. And it was just, I was there around these guys. We're doing all the publicity, radio shows, talk shows, news stuff. We're, paper in the towns, you know what I mean? We're doing everything that we can to draw a crowd. Especially being in Austria. It's, we had, it was quite the challenge. It was definitely especially with the language barrier. So there was another wrestler there by the name of Bambi Killer, Chris the Bambi Killer. He's a big star now over there in Europe. He's still working in these days, and he was actually my first match. So he was another teenager. I was 13 years old, and man, I wasn't even, I was like the summer before 8th grade or something like that. Like it was something crazy, and he was also a teenager, a couple years older than me, maybe like 16 or 17, maybe even 18. But he was really young, but he spoke a little bit of English. So I hit it off with him, and I kind of was just hanging out with him the whole 3 weeks that we were there. And I somehow talked my dad into it. I was like, Dad, I'm bigger than all these guys on the tour. I'm already 6'3", 190 pounds at 13, and I'm like, Dad, I got to be able to do this. I was like, I know how to bump. He's like, son, you have to train. He's like, son, you got to train first. He's like, this isn't.
You're small. You're 13. You have a full beard.
I had the crustache. I had the little crustache going. I had to keep the gimmick going, try to be older. But yeah, I was like begging my dad, like, please, let me get in there with these guys. I know how to bump. I was like, I'm talking. Man, I was like, you see me wrestle Sean, Maluda, and Lance, and they're little kids now. I was like, you see me wrestle them all the time in the ring, Dad. Like, I know how to work, and I'm really selling it to my pops. He's like, no, son, you have to train. You have to train. I was like, Dad, promise. I was like, I promise. As soon as we get back, I'll train. Just let me get on this show. Let me get on this tour. It's 2-3 matches. Let me just ride this. And then he was like, no, you have to train. So then he calls a meeting with my brothers, Sam and Lloyd. They were working as the head shrinkers over there. And he calls them up, and he was like, all right, guys, your brother wants to train. He goes, so move the furniture, move everything. Now we're on the top floor of like a penthouse in like hotel in Austria. That like it's hot, like middle of Austria, like back in '98. There's no air conditioning. Like I don't even think they had ice. Like it's hot. So Pops is moving all the furniture, all the beds, and everything like that. And here come my brothers. I mean, I'm talking, I was learning bumps on the floor, hip tosses, like everything that you could think of, like getting trained by, my brothers, by Sam and Lloyd at in their prime. Halfway through it, I pulled my dad aside. I was like, Dad, nope, maybe not. I'm going to stick to playing baseball, going back to sports. We're just going to do that. My dad looked at me. He goes, it's too late, son. He goes, now get back up there and train.
You said just like your dad. You do a spot on Afa.
Yo, just like that. It's too late, son. You know what I mean? And I was just like, oh my God, what did I got myself into? So I go back up and I finish my training, and then I go out and I finished the loop. My first match was a battle royal, which I actually won. And like, the footage is around somewhere, but it shouldn't be. It
Next
shouldn't
time you
be.
see Tommy, you got to do that Afa impression. Wow.
It's just,
I love it.
it's like, man, it's like we fought so hard to get on spots back then, because there wasn't many indies. And then when we came back, it was just like I had to hide from the state athletic commissions and everything, being so young. And so I was stuck in Jersey, and that's where I met you and Tommy and Judas and all these guys. And but that's where I learned how to work. All those years was in Jersey with you guys. So it was quite the journey.
Now, I get it. Like if you're joining the family business and you're, say, an architect, you want to be as good as your dad. You want to be better than your dad. Your dad's Afa the Wild Samoan. I mean, like, what a trendsetter! Like, those are huge shoes to fill. Like,
Yeah,
seriously, Afa, what kind of pressure was that for you?
man, it was a lot of pressure. It was a
Yeah.
lot of pressure. So it was just like me as a kid. Up until that point, I never had any interest in wrestling. I was a 3-sport athlete. Like really good at my sports. Like I remember one funny story. I was playing Little League baseball, right? And Pops had to work the concession stand this game. Like it's mandatory. You have to do it or you're going to lose the work bond money. And you know how the Little League gimmicks go.
I'm in it. I
And
know.
so
My
Pops
daughters
was
are
stuck.
here.
My mom was working. His wife was working. You know what I mean? Like Lloyd was out of town. Sam, nobody could do it. Like Pops was stuck selling hot dogs at this game. And so here I am, no pressure. Pops is always in the stands with his first one at the building, like in any stands. And this was from Little League level all the way up to high school level, and then All-American game, and UConn when I went to Division I and started. Pops first one in the stadium always. So for Pops to miss this one particular game was crazy because I hit 4 home runs in that game, like out of the park. Out of the park. He missed every single one of them.
If there were cell phones back,
day.
there were cell phones back then. I'd love to have seen your dad behind there hanging
Oh
out
man,
front.
it was crazy. Pops was going hot because I would run out and I'd be like, "Dad, I just hit a home run," and he's trying to no sell. He's like, "Yes, he's getting hot. I could see he's getting hot," and doing that stuff. And then I came back out, "Dad, I hit another one." Right, and then I came out, "Dad, I hit another one," and my dad's getting hot now. I could see it, like hair's out. You know what I mean? No hot dogs are being sold by the Wild Samoan that day. Like, I dare you to go get a hot dog from him, kind of atmosphere, So then he just said, "Screw this," and he left. And then my 5th at bat, I ended up hitting a triple. I tried to get another one, but didn't get it. Sorry, Pops, but I hit 4 and you missed them all.
Your dad, I'm sure, is very old school. Did you used to go to, like, I don't know, TGI Fridays for dinner? Did people go up to him? Was he the
Oh
Wild
yeah,
Samoan, or yeah?
yeah, oh
Like
yeah,
was
all the
he was,
time. It
was
was
always
big,
Samoan?
and Pops didn't speak English whenever they came up, so it was great. It was great. It was awesome. But it was, Pops Wild Samoan. I'm growing up. We have the Undertaker at the gym. Working out. We got all these guys working out, and it's like, and all the stars that came through before they were stars. Like all the young Billy Kidman and Chris Canyon, and and when Luna Vachon and Gangrel were living in our basement, and and like the stories go on and on and on. Like we had, man, it was like a who's who. Oh, what's happening? Are we back? There we go. I don't know. My gimmick. I'm gonna have to plug it in or something.
Yeah,
So,
actually, I was at the school in Pennsylvania with Kidman one time. He took me down there. I
yeah,
trained down there. Yeah, great school.
yeah, man. So it's a blessing to be part of the family, and just to grow up and watch all that develop right in front of my eyes. And like I look back and it's just like, oh man, that was pretty cool. Like we had like a whole roster. Like you could have said, like we had the SmackDown roster basically living in our basement at one point in time. Like the who's who of wrestling. It was like, for a while there, it was just like if you were somebody in the wrestling game, it was like you worked for Pops in WXW or trained with him at the training center, or you were affiliated some way or shape or form with Pops. And shout out to Pops for holding it down for all these years. Oh yeah.
Everyone did.